It's Margaret. Welcome to the Femme Fatalities, and I'm joined today with our special guest.
Hi, I'm Arika. I am co-hosting today. Thank you so much for inviting me. I'm here.
Thank you so much for joining today.
Of course.
We are going to talk about one of my favorite movies, Candyman. Did you want to sum it up? Did you want me to sum it up?
Go for it. It's your favorite.
Okay. So, first of all, please jump in. Trigger warnings. There's some violence. The dog does die. There's kidnapping, gang activity, infidelity, discussion of urban legends. Did they give it? Think of anything else for trigger warnings?
I would say, I think you got it. I'm trying to think. There's definitely some oppression in there regarding people of color as well.
Yes, thank you for bringing that up. Both movies, Candyman, the original from 1992 and the sequel from 2021, does discuss oppression, human rights, racism, socioeconomics, gentrification, privilege. Both movies have heavy themes of that. The first movie, white saviorism, is, I think, a huge thing. What do you think?
I agree.
Yeah, especially with the character of Helen Lyle, there is the end especially.
Mm-hmm.
So stop, hit pause right now, go watch the movie, and then come back. Yes, the end when she is a saint painted on the wall.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. So, what did you think about Candyman? Tell me your thoughts, your feelings.
Well, I first saw the original Candyman when I was a middle schooler. It scared me so bad. I was afraid to go in the bathroom for the longest time. I thought bees were gonna just appear and attack me and kill me. Watching it now as I'm older, I'm 30 now, and it's definitely not as scary, but it's more, I would find it more intriguing and more interesting. Or is where I wanted to learn more about Candyman. I felt very connected with Helen in that aspect of, I need to know more. Like, what happened? Why is this going on? I need answers.
Yes, and you touch on that urban legend, right? And she was a graduate student working on her thesis paper with her colleague, and they find out about the urban legend of Candyman. And I appreciate that in both films, how they touch on how urban legends are created. And I really appreciated the second one, how they morph that urban legend. It starts with the original Candyman, and then each generation adds their own incarnation of Candyman, and Candyman really does come to be the voice of the oppressed almost. He has to be around so that people will look at his community, will honor his community, his people, and sadly, he has to hurt community members so that people don't forget. I also really appreciated the second one that say his name, right? Going into say their names movement and not forgetting to say the name, and how so often name carries power. And Candyman's name has so much power to it. Almost you get afraid. I will say sometimes, I'm like, oh, how many times did I say Candyman? There's no mirrors around, are there? Because it's such a powerful movie.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
I think they both were shot beautifully. What is it, like Helen's Lullaby? Or I can't think of what the score is called, but that music that plays every time we see Helen and Candyman. It's just, I thought the movie was poetic and hypnotic, and both of them I really enjoyed.
I definitely really liked both of them. It's been a while since I've seen the 2021 version, but I have seen the one with Tony Todd more recently. And I just thought his obsession with Helen was also very interesting, that this is what is driving him, because in his eyes, she was the reincarnation of his lover that he was murdered for being with.
Mm-hmm.
So all he wanted was Helen.
Yes. And that obsessive, like, love story, maybe not a love story, but yes, like, she represents his lover and how even she seems to be falling in love with him. So there is this tragedy in just how they feel about each other. And then she even becomes. I love the end of the original. Like, she then also takes on some of Candyman's powers when I don't know if they ever got divorced in the movie, but her husband who cheated on her goes in the bathroom and says her name in the mirror 5 times.
He kind of earned it. He deserved it all.
Yes. Yes.
He's sleeping with a college student, so
yes.
That kill was justified for sure in the movie. By Helen. And I thought it was really interesting also that she kind of took on him as well, like essentially becoming part of him, or at least an extension of him.
Yes.
And then that spreads the fear, it spreads his name, and it seemed to me that the more people believe in Candyman and the more people spread the fear, the more he's able to have power and be able to do the things that he does. And, having Helen as basically his right hand is just spreading it.
Yes.
Even more.
And even how in the second one it plays off of that, right? Where Helen is now, she's part of the problem. She kidnapped a baby. She was the one that was hurting people, and how history changes stories and we don't always know, again, the urban legend and what is the root of it, and then how does it grow, how does it get fed.
Right. Yeah. It's very also like reminds me like Freddy Krueger-esque, just with the fear and the power, essentially. Just you have to believe and you have to fear to give them that power and that control. And I also just love kind of the storyline of there's always, in a lot of horror movies, you see it, a person, whether that's a reporter or an investigator or somebody who becomes so obsessed with finding the truth that you watch their lines between reality and whatever other world they're, looking into blurring. And you could definitely see that with Helen when, she killed her best friend.
Yeah.
Candyman did it,
yes.
But it very, if you're an investigator, whoever coming in, it looks like Helen did it.
Yes.
Because her lines are blurring so much.
I think that's a great
That made me sad. When her best friend died, I did not want that to happen.
No, and that's a great point about how she got so invested, so obsessed with what was happening that she did. Her lines got blurred. It does look like she killed to the outside world. Bernadette. She killed Bernadette. She killed her therapist. She killed a lot of people.
Yeah, she kidnapped a baby. And I think the folks at Cabrini Green, it seemed like in the end were like, okay, Helen was trying to help. She was trying to stop Candyman. Yeah. Because she does save the baby from the fire that Candyman put there. To, I think, sacrifice the baby. That was always a little blurred to me as the point with the baby, whether it was like a soul for a soul or something along those lines. But she does, end up saving the baby, and people at Cabrini are like, okay, we see that you're not just some crazy lady, but then again, there's like that white saviorism there, in that she, kind of sacrifices herself for the truth, and I mean, nobody really got to hear hear the truth about Candyman and everything that she discovered. Yeah, because she dies and turns into him, basically.
And I feel like you hit a very valid point of she's trying to save the baby and going in on how the movie is trying to bring awareness to psycho or to socioeconomics, to the Cabrini Green. Cabrini Green, and for those of you that are not aware, that was a terrifying place to live in Chicago. It was overrun with gangs and it was unsafe. And I feel like Candyman brings in this urban legend to try to explain why it's so unsafe and trying to bring awareness. And the awareness they get is just, no, this is unsafe. So even like the kids in the beginning saying, white people don't come here, only cops. So if you're a white woman here, you must be a police officer or social services or something like that. And then sadly, she just feeds that urban legend because the community, the greater community, does not want to look at Cabrini Green. Even like look at her apartment. She's like, this was built to be the project. Like my apartment, and it was just upsold. They continue that theme in the second one where it's like, oh yeah, these were meant to be low income housing, and because of, I don't remember if it was like what was making that like more, why gentrification was happening in that neighborhood. And even in the second one, I think like the art critic touches on artists are part of the gentrification problem because they move into low income areas, and because they are white or affluent or have means, they raise the price. And I wasn't sure where she was getting at that with Anthony because he is a black man, and so he's like, your people. He's like, excuse me. He's like, you artists, like you're part of the problem. And I didn't see Anthony as part of the problem in that, as he is a member of the community. I felt she was part of the problem, being a snobby art critic.
Yeah, and I think in that, I feel like everybody, has their role to play in that. It's kind of just like that vicious circle where you see some neighborhoods get a lot better, and then other neighborhood gets a lot better, where the previous neighborhood now starts to go downhill. It's just kind of like that circle. And I think with Helen's apartment and how it was constructed the same as Cabrini, I'm not too sure again what happened there to make it so those ones were so different. But it felt like Cabrini Green just kind of stayed in sort of like this time capsule. Like nothing changed or anything there. And the movie kind of touches on it as well, where Helen gets attacked in the bathroom. And now all of a sudden the cops are there. Now all of a sudden they care. Whereas before the cops, they would get called over to Cabrini and either wouldn't show up or would show up too late. Mm-hmm. So I think it definitely made everybody there feel already unsafe. And now you have the urban legend of Candyman playing into it, which makes people feel even more unsafe in their home, essentially.
Yeah. And I feel like the second one kind of helps build that, right? Because we have the story. I can't think of the guy's name, but he handed out candy and he had like a fake can. I don't think it was a hook. And a razor blade was found in a little white girl's candy, so that the cops are looking for him. And so they're at Cabrini Green. And then we touch on like the first incident of police brutality. Maybe not the first, but that is where this incarnation of Candyman happens, is through his story. And so then, because the first one's actually that happens in the 90s, whereas they go back to the 70s and that police brutality. And then we can see where the police slowly start to pull out of the neighborhood as the neighborhood starts to become more and more, I don't even know like the right word for it, because it's basically neglected by the larger community. And so families are left to fend for themselves. Criminals start to take over because there isn't community support. I mean, there is, like, this community's trying to support each other, like we see in the first one, where they're trying to tell Anne Marie's story, the one who dies, and the gangs are kind of keeping that from happening.
Yeah, definitely. I do also, for folks that may or may not know, Candyman is loosely based on a true story. In, I think it was 1981, there was a woman, I just read her name, Ruthie Mae. And she lived in an apartment.
In the movie too, Ruthie Mae.
Ruthie Mae. And she was an older woman collecting Social Security, donated to her church, had children, and she was living in a low income, like assisted living place in Chicago. And the layout was, similar to how we see it Cabrini Green, where behind the bathroom mirrors, there's all this space in the wall that connects your unit to your neighbor's unit through the bathroom mirrors. And police have been receiving calls from residents for months of break-ins, of people breaking in via the bathroom mirror, because you could easily get into the walls and just run amok, essentially, in this complex. Ruthie Mae had called police several times. They never really sent cruisers out or anything like that. And one day her home was broken into, and Ruthie Mae, unfortunately, was murdered. She tried to call police. Police didn't do anything. Her neighbors called police. They tried to get into the home, couldn't, left. Called police again, finally got into the house. I think they had to have a locksmith come through and break her door down, essentially, or bust the lock, and that's when they found her. 2 boys were arrested, but were not charged because there was no way to prove it was them, because so many different people were going through these corridors, busting into people's houses via the bathroom mirror. So I just want to take a second to really just honor her, because her death was horrific and tragic, and she lived a long life. She was an older woman, but even still, you don't make it through life that long to be taken so horrifically. Her murder is still unsolved. They never arrested anybody in regards to it, so it did happen in the 80s, but if anybody knows anything or knows somebody that was in the Chicago area at that time, reach out to law enforcement so just her family can have some peace. I don't know how her family feels about the Candyman story and it being, very based on her death. I mean, the girl in the story is even portrayed like her daughter, and they have pretty much the same name. So they definitely used her likeness a lot in Candyman. So I just wanted to take a second for her and just, hopefully her family does have peace in regards to her murder, and I hope that one day they arrest or solve what happened to her, because her story did inspire this huge, I don't know if Candyman's really a franchise, but this huge, horror phenomenon that people still talk about and watch today. So, Ruthie, wherever your spirit is, I hope you are at peace.
Thank you for sharing the history of Ruthie Mae. I don't know if you knew this, it's also loosely based on a short story by Clive Barker, the gentleman who did the Hellraisers, and I believe that's where Sweets for the Sweets came from. I have not read the short story. It's on my to-read list, so I'm not sure how much the movie also pulls from his story. And so even I appreciate that of Candyman, how it's pulling from this story, it's pulling from events that really happened. It's looking at society and being able to create a story and take these elements and put them together. I also appreciate in the second one their use of art, like the puppets that tell the story, the shadow puppets, and even how art is often a way we can convey things that we cannot convey. It's a way for people to hear when they're not listening to words. They can look at, right, the pictures, like in the second one where he tells the story of Ruthie Mae, Candyman by the mirror. the medicine cabinet, right, that you have to open up, and then you're looking inside to see his art show or his say the name, or in that art exhibit, how he said, no, like, there's these stories that you need to hear.
Mm-hmm. And I just want to say, whoever came up with that building plan, what is that? Who thought that would just be fine? I'm sorry, but that has always bothered me, the architecture of that building.
Maybe cutting corners. I don't.
Maybe it was just something that they oversaw and didn't think would be an issue. Maybe people busting through people's bathroom mirrors. I can't imagine how terrible that would be.
Yeah. And how you might think you're losing your mind. Because somebody could get in and then leave and you wouldn't know.
Mm-hmm.
And then you just be questioning your own sanity.
Yeah. Well, and again, it comes back to that, like, you don't feel safe in your neighborhood. You don't feel safe in your own home. Mm-hmm. And that can really, just break somebody down. Especially over time when you don't feel safe in your home where you are.
And how then you explain that. Here comes Candyman to explain being unsafe.
Mm-hmm.
A way to explain, well, it has to be this person that's doing this harm.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Anything else you'd like to add?
Not that I can think of. I just wanted to take that moment for the woman whose, story that this is based off of.
Thank you. I really appreciate that.
Yeah, of course.
Well, thank you for listening, and you want to add anything as we...
Thank you, everybody, for watching. Thank you for having me today. This has been super fun. And everybody, check out some other episodes. Look out for your favorite movies. Leave a comment on any movies that you want to talk about.
Yes, thank you.